Welcome back. It was a day filled with pomp and celebration after Labour's landslide victory in yesterday's UK general election. Labour leader Keir Starmer began his day meeting with King Charles at Buckingham Palace, where he formally accepted the role of UK Prime Minister, officially ending 14 years of the Conservative Party in power. He then travelled to 10 Downing Street, where he was met by a crowd of supporters as he delivered his first remarks as Prime Minister in front of that famous black door. Earlier today, President Biden spoke by phone with the new Prime Minister and congratulated him for his victory. The two leaders will meet in person in just a matter of days when President Biden hosts world leaders for the annual NATO gathering. Joining me now is NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez outside 10 Downing Street. A little late there, so it's a little hard to see that famous door, Raf, but thanks so much for joining us. So this was really a landslide victory for Labour. What did we hear from the new Prime Minister, and what were your takeaways?
Well, Kristen, talking to voters here over the last couple of days, it was very, very clear people wanted change. They were exhausted. They were frustrated with the Conservative government, which, as you said, had been in charge for the last 14 years. But the last 8 of those 14 were a period of unprecedented political chaos in this country since that 2016 Brexit referendum, when the UK voted to leave the European Union. Since then, the Conservatives cycled through 5 different prime ministers in 8 years. You'll remember Boris Johnson forced to resign after that scandal where it emerged he broke his own COVID lockdown rules and attended illegal parties here at 10 Downing Street. So the public wanted change. Keir Starmer is not a man who is brimming with charisma, but he does project competence, and he made very clear he understood the message and he understood the mandate from the British people. Take a listen.
You campaigned for it, you fought for it, you voted for it, and now it has arrived. Change begins now. Today we start the next chapter, begin the work of change, the mission of national renewal, and start to rebuild our country.
And Kristen, the new Prime Minister, speaking outside Downing Street a little earlier today, said the work of change begins immediately, and he wasn't kidding. Within an hour or so, we started to see his new cabinet ministers walking down this street, the new Foreign Secretary, the new Defense Secretary, the people who will be shaping policy, coming here and getting their marching orders from the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Kristen.
Just extraordinary, and you're there watching it all unfold. Thank you so much, Raf Sanchez. Really appreciate it. Great reporting. For more on this historic election, I'm joined now by Sir Trevor Phillips, presenter of Sunday Morning with Trevor Phillips at our sister network, Sky News. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Kristen, it's a great pleasure to be with you. And I heard you say that, well, it's a sister program. I regard you as a big sister here.
Oh, that's so nice. Well, listen, I am honored to have you on the program. It's really fantastic. This was an historic victory for Labour. Tell us about it.
Well, as Raf said, it was an extraordinary moment. And to give you an idea of how remarkable this achievement is, Keir Starmer is only the 5th Labour leader in history to win an election of this kind from opposition. It is an unfamiliar experience. The last time this happened was in 1997. Tony Blair won in a landslide. So you have to be at least 45 years old in this country to have voted in an election where this happened. And of course, the scale of it is extraordinary. We have 650 members of parliament. Keir Starmer now has 412 of them under his control. So he can pretty much do what he wants. And for the Conservatives, it's a disaster. It is their worst performance, bar none. And this is a party that has existed for over 200 years.
Well, as Raf said, he's wasting no time getting to work, but obviously the agenda is robust. What the people there want to see him change and deliver on the economy. Certainly at the top of that list, what are you going to be watching for? What are the top issues that he's poised to tackle there?
Well, the top issue, of course, is always the cost of living. And that will be the business of his chancellor, a lady called Rachel Reeves, who is the first female chancellor in the United Kingdom's history. And she's going to have to tackle the economic problems that we have. Our debt is about 100% of GDP. Inflation's fallen recently, but of course, that doesn't mean that prices aren't going up. Unemployment is okay, but it is still on the line. And of course, the issue of immigration, we have, right as you have at the southern border, across our channel, small boats bringing refugees, asylum seekers, and others who are not, who pretend to be asylum seekers and so on, from France. And that has caused a great deal of anxiety in this country. And indeed, it's partly responsible for the result because a third party, led by a man called Nigel Farage, who will be familiar to some Americans, friend of Donald Trump, is really the person who is responsible for this astonishing result, because what he did was to divide the Conservative vote largely on the issue of immigration, and that is why we are where we are. So Keir Starmer is going to have to attend to all of those issues, and there will be no honeymoon. It's worth saying that he won this landslide on only 34% of the vote, which is the lowest, I think, share for some time by a winning party.
You know, it's interesting because he is obviously set to meet with President Biden in just a few days for the NATO summit. The two have spoken by phone, the president congratulating him. I don't have to tell you, we are in our own election year here. How much is riding on this visit, this NATO summit for the new prime minister?
Well, I think he has to show that he is a prime ministerial material. Bear in mind, he has never occupied office. He only became a member of parliament in 2015. Before that, he was the director of public prosecution for the United Kingdom. I got to know him very well because I occupied a similar office, and we worked together a lot. But politics is a new game to him. So he first has to show that he can do politics, that he can be a statesman. And I think that the NATO summit will be an opportunity to do that. Of course, as you say, Kristen, you have your own troubles. And I suspect that Mr. Biden will probably want to see Sir Keir Starmer as an ally. All over the Western world, politics is moving in the opposite direction from the center-left. So actually, these two men right now are probably the only or the most prominent representatives of center-left politics in the developed world.
It's such a fascinating and important point, particularly when you think about the fact that President Biden is running against former President Trump, who is conservative, considered to be a representative of the far-right movement in this country, certainly. How do you think Prime Minister Starmer would work with Mr. Trump if he were to be reelected? Would that be a challenge?
Well, it's a great question. And Keir Starmer has answered this question in the way that you would expect a politician to answer it, by saying that he can't decide who the American electorate decides to put in the White House, and he will work with whomsoever. And in any event, the relationship, the special relationship, is one between states rather than persons. And in that sense, he is correct. However, let's be clear. His foreign secretary, who is a man called David Lammy, again, our first black, I should say, foreign secretary, a man whose parents hail from Guyana and who attended Harvard, actually, and is a friend of the Obamas, at one point said some very rude things, which I'm not going to repeat on the family channel, about Donald Trump. And Mr. Trump knows that. Now, you know, there may be Trump 2.0, who is a guy who doesn't do vengeance and who doesn't do coming after his enemies. But if he is true to form, that will be a little bit of a difficulty. Having said all of that, the truth of the matter is there are bigger issues than the personalities here. There is Putin. There is the Middle East. And I suspect that actually, if there is a President Trump and a Prime Minister Starmer, they will find ways of holding their noses and getting along.
And I do have to ask you about one of the biggest headlines that we've been discussing here in this country. Of course, that debate performance by President Biden, raising questions about his ability to serve another 4 years. I'm curious if you can take us inside your conversations there in the UK. How much do people there care about what we all saw in the debate stage last Thursday?
We care about it a lot. Your election is the most important election in the world. It's, by the way, not the only important election. There's ours. On Sunday, France will elect a new parliamentary majority. It is expected that the largest party there will be the party of Marine Le Pen, the leader of the hard-right National Rally. They may not form the government, but like Farage, they will be extremely influential, and whoever is in government will have to some extent, dance to their tune. So your election is very, very important to us. We pay a lot of attention. I'll be absolutely frank with you. I think most people here were pretty stunned at the performance of President Biden. It is very hard to see from here exactly what this means. But I heard some of your discussion, and I have to say it becomes pretty clear from here that it's hard to see how, unless he somehow gets past that evening, and I don't see how that happens, that we will be contending with a President Trump, unless the Democrats decide to do something dramatic.
Yeah, it is day by day, minute by minute. That is for sure. Sir Trevor Phillips, we cannot thank you enough for your insights and for joining us. I do hope you will come back soon. Really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. It's been lovely to talk to you. And by the way, say hi to Raf, who's an old friend.
I will. I absolutely will. He did a tremendous job setting this whole conversation up. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.